Okay.
Okay. This is the decision-making meeting for the executive member covering land and property, corporate property, regulatory services and licensing, and contracting, procurement and social value. Welcome to everybody. If you want to speak, if you want to use the hand raise function, if I'm missing anything, please just speak into the microphone. The first item on the agenda today is the monitoring report of executive member decisions that goes back a number of years. And this is mostly just for noting, but there are a few things I do want to say about this report to be helpful. So 8719 is 1 Newport Street, Bolton. And there have been recent decisions through the Regeneration Department at Cabinet 2024. So this may be able to come off the monitoring report. We'll look into that. 15/7/2019, that's the disability awareness and safeguarding training for the licensing industry. Now, training is still being provided by a third party, but it's moved to self-financing now by the person with the license, and this may be able to come off the monitoring report. We'll look at that. 14/9/20 is Crompton Place update. There's a regeneration plan in place and recent cabinet decisions have taken place. This item, I think, will likely come off the monitoring report in relation to the acquisition decision. 26 September 2022, this is SAMP Phase 7, which is the Church Wharf area. Now, the Church Wharf scheme has recently had regeneration and financing decisions at Cabinet 2024, and this item will be reviewed and updated on this monitoring report. Last one, 29 November 2022. This is the Horwich Health and Leisure Centre car park. Now, this item has been at ECM Regeneration or ECM Highways meetings and formal meetings. This monitoring report will reflect it, and we're going to ensure that there's accuracy on that item, what we need to do about it on our monitoring report. So I'm going to ask if there are anybody who wants to say anything or raise any questions. Councillor Flitcroft, Maureen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to ask a few questions, if I can, on the Kersler Community Centre, formerly listed as the Zacks building. As you can imagine, when I get the details for the meetings, I do consult with the ward councillors on things that matter to them. And I've been asked to ask that it says on the report that a draft of the lease has been shared with ward councillors, and they're saying that they haven't seen that. That's one question. And the other question is, the report says there've been several interested parties. They want to know, can they be privy to the details of the interested parties? And also, linking to that, how is it possible that this asset can be promoted more locally to make sure that anybody who would want to express an interest in taking on a lease has a fair crack of the whip, sort of thing?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, and I'm going to answer on a number of those points. So I think there was one meeting that was said to be quite positive that they held with the assistant director at the time, and I think I wasn't on that meeting, so things were very positive. And you're quite right. It looks like they've not seen a draft lease. I'm aware that I've not seen a draft lease because we're not at that stage now. And I highlighted in the last monitoring report, I thought that there were inaccuracies there. So whether that was, I don't know whether that was about discussion. I'm not aware of one. I think more related to the discussion is the matter of what they were going to do around where there were interested parties in this item. And I'm aware of an interested party in the item. so it feels like we need to get more crystal clear on what was agreed with ward councillors at a meeting that I wasn't on. And in a sense, that relates to wanting more promotion in the local area. So we do know that there's interest, and I can add actually, if you weren't on the email, I know that there were two ward councillors, colleagues that you're in touch with there in Kersley, who have seen an expression of interest. They've definitely had that, even though there's not been a meeting. And probably the only reason why there's not been the catch-up meeting has been we've just had a fair bit of training and training courses and annual leave and some bereavement leave. It's just been, and I've not held some of my meetings because of that as well. So I think by now we would have wanted to have had one more meeting to fill in where there are those gaps. If I could do it, I would, but I wasn't on that preliminary meeting that all the ward councillors there had, you see. So I don't have notes to be able to update it in any way.
Yeah, they are aware that there is one interested party, but the report says several, and they just thought, is there something that they don't know about?
I would say not. I would say it's the same as it was on the last meeting where I said there is. I think what I said was there was not so much confusion. There were two sentences that kind of were different to each other on the last monitoring report. I could flick it up, where if you read one sentence, then the second sentence didn't kind of match up very well. So I'm happy to say that it was not right. The words in that last monitoring report were not right, and we're going to carry on in the way that we've agreed. We had this agreement at place scrutiny when property was in place last year. We said, of course, we always will work to the rule of communicating with and working with all the ward councillors out of fairness. So we're not going to be able to do anything without the conversation having been had respectfully with all of the ward councillors there. And, you know, we all work as ward councillors, don't we? So we all know we've got to have a couple of ward councillors on board for things to go forward in nearly every case.
And how about promoting in the local area this availability?
I will catch up with what was said at that first meeting, because something like that is a kind of something that you talk about when you first sit down to have a conversation about a small building that we want the community in Kersley to, in Presto Lee, well, and the whole footprint of Kersley, however we think is best, but it is in Presto Lee, to benefit the local community. And the decision document, I would say the decision document, I was really quite pleased with that. And it said a lot about why we want to do well for Kersley. And if I could ask anybody to go back to that and have a look at what was said, and that is the standard that we're working to. We want to do well for the area, and that's why we've said, you know, we've removed this from the community asset transfer list, and the decision document highlights that we need to do the right thing by Kersley. It has lost services and provision over the years.
Could I ask that the report is amended then, it doesn't say things that haven't happened?
The monitoring report, yes,
Yeah.
I will, and I think had we not had this sort of unusual period of weeks, it likely would have been, Maureen, it would have been properly amended and updated, and we'll make sure that happens. And it's not the first occasion when words have had to be changed in a monitoring report. And I think for me, I want the monitoring report to be up to date. I dread months going by where there's no update. Of course, inaccuracy is not good, but perhaps it's part of, I just accept sometimes there might be an inaccuracy if I'm working hard on 17 pages to keep that report right. And I really welcome these questions on any item, because it really keeps us, you know, working to those items properly and not just leaving them in abeyance in any way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lee Fallows, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to Councillor Flitcroft. It sounds as though that it's fallen a little bit by the the one you were just talking about. I will pick it up with the team, and it might be worth us just getting a meeting together and just update you on the current situation with everything. So I'll take that away as an action and make sure it's all updated so you know what's going on. Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to raise anything on the monitoring report? No. Okay, thanks very much. So I've formally noted the monitoring report and given some verbal updates. Ian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda today is the corporate directorate finance report Q2. And I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Pollard. Janet, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is the Q2 finance report for the whole of the Directorate of Corporate Resources. The Directorate is projecting an overspend of £122,000. For this portfolio, they're projecting a balanced budget by the end of the year. There are no significant variances to report. The key financial findings can be found on page 3, and service-specific findings can be found on Appendix A. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the contents of the report and approve the recommendations in section 11 if they're appropriate for this portfolio. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'm just going to check one with you first, please, Janet.
Yeah.
So that report, obviously, it covers all the different ECM areas for corporate resources, the corporate budget. But just to be clear for corporate property, if we go to 2.2, we've just got an overspend, have we not, for corporate property of 3,000 on the revenue line there?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which is, for all intents and purposes, a balanced budget. So that's how I would term it today.
Balanced because of the smaller amount.
Yeah, because it's not material. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Grateful for that. Thank you. Councillor Hayes, please.
Thank you. A question really about the capital receipts, where we've struggled all the way through. I know of a couple of cases where it's virtually agreed that we sell, but it seems to be very slow. The first question is, are we taking any actions to actually speed up capital receipts? And when is the SAMP 8 list of disposals actually likely to come forward?
Thank you very much for your question, which is very important. I want you to know that as ECM, that's one of the priorities I consider for this work that I do, ensuring that we continue on capital receipts, ensuring that we don't fall behind. Janet, do you want to say anything about the capital receipts position on the finance report at all, or do you want me to hand over?
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the capital receipts, there is a requirement to meet the target within the report, but we have the flexibility for the achievement to go over 2 years. And the reason for that is it funds the capital programme. So often, as members know, there is some slippage within the capital programme. So we just need to make sure that we've received those capital receipts by the time those schemes have finished. And there is flexibility. We've looked at it for over the next 2 years. So have been talking to colleagues in property around forecasting when those receipts would be due to come in, just to see that they would match with the council's requirement.
Thank you, Janet. So from memory, we were in an agreeable, acceptable position on our capital receipts last year, and our requirement is 2.7 million. But as you say, over 2 years, actual at the moment is nudging towards £1 million. It's probably more around £500,000, isn't it? But of course, it also depends on, and I haven't forgotten you want an answer on SAMP 8, Councillor Hayes. It also relates very much to the size of assets that we know are on the pipeline for disposal. So thank you for saying you're in conversation with property officers. We've got Lee Fallows and Justin Clough on the call. Can I ask if you want to say anything about SAMP 8? From memory, SAMP 8 is listed on that monitoring report, Councillor Hayes. If you've had time to see that, it must be, SAMP 8 will be there. Anybody wanting to, I could flick it up to just, if anybody wants to say anything else, I can just be flicking up and getting to Sam Payton monitoring. Is there anything else to say at all about that item? It's going to take me a few minutes.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I mean, I'm getting speculation from people who aren't actually with the council that there is a deliberate slowing up of sales linked to the council's likely need to find sites for housing. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, I certainly can't give you a view because strategic housing is not, in my portfolio. But do any of the officers want to give any view on that? Sorry, Justin. Yes, please. Justin Clough, our Assistant Director. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I can assure the councillor that there isn't a deliberate sort of policy of sort of delay in trying to sort of frustrate the system. There is a pipeline of disposals going through at the moment. We've got quite a few things that are in solicitors' hands of a sizable note, which we've been disposing of in recent weeks. We've also, as of back end of last summer as well, we've revised our disposal process. So what we've done, we've created a new way of going about our disposals, so we can sort of target more in terms of be more strategic in how we deal with our disposals as well. So again, it's something we're conscious of, and obviously I know I'm relatively new to the organisation, but in the last couple of months, I'm aware of a lot of work that's been happening in the background in terms of trying to sort of unblock any sort of blockages that are in the system. Councillor Howarth and I have been through. We have a regular meeting, obviously a weekly meeting, but also we've been going through the SAMP list as well in terms of looking at past sites, anything that's in the system that hasn't been released for any reason, anything that sort of needs fresh eyes to try and sort of deliver sort of new sites or get some existing sites back in the system. So there's quite a bit of work going on in the background. You'll understand probably as well, we're going through a bit of a transformation as a service. We're bringing in obviously sort of more in-house capability, the ability to actually sort of sit down and think more strategically and drive sort of sales will really make a big difference. You'll see behind me as well, I've got lots of ward maps on the wall as well. So we're sort of really sort of looking at things in terms of how different sites interlock, how they engage with sort of different parts of our estate as well. So there's a lot of things that are happening in the background, but there's certainly no desire from officers to frustrate the system to sort of slow things down. We are working with strategic housing. So we do have a strategic housing group. We work with our regeneration team. We work with Jenny Mayer and the sort of Bolton community housing, and obviously any registered providers who we work with as well in identifying potential opportunities for social housing and further housing development. But it's not all about housing. Obviously, we have a requirement, obviously, to sort of dispose of land and help enable growth, jobs, prosperity for the town as well. So there's quite a lot happening, obviously, and more than happy to sort of share some of that where we can do as we progress.
Thank you very much. And it's just to let Councillor Hayes know as well that I'm quite pleased with the detail on SAMP. It says disposals phase 8. It refers to them as phases. So SAMP 8, it's called phase 8 on the monitoring report. It's the same as it was October 2024, the same position. But one thing this administration has done is, on the monitoring report, it doesn't just mention phase 8 or SAMP 8, where you would have to go back and find the decision paper. The monitoring report's got longer per item because we actually try and include the detail of what either the land plot or the building was. So you've got a bit more detail about it, about your council ward. So the SAMP 8 on the monitoring report now lists a number of the decisions that were made. For example, land adjacent to Braycrest Victoria Road is one of them, or Design Street in Bolton. So you get that detail now. And it's telling you that one has moved to a lease agreement of the 16 sites that were agreed for disposal, and remaining, those that are remaining, where there hasn't been a disposal, are due in the 24-25 year. And where we can, that will be updated. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions or comments anybody wants to make on the corporate resources Q2 finance report, I've got to, I shouldn't have flicked off my document, should I? Because I've got to just make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah, I've got to make these decisions. So I'm going to note the Q2 financial position of the Directorate of Corporate Resources. I'm going to note the revisions made to the capital programme, which fall under this portfolio. I'm going to authorise the Director of Corporate Resources to call off under any available frameworks where the value of the work is less than £400,000 to enable the capital programme to progress. And I'm going to note the post-conversion. I think that is for another ECM, that post-conversion.
Yep.
And yes, and note the key findings of the report. So thank you very much, much appreciated. And the last item on the agenda today is another finance report Q2, and this is the Place Directorate. I'm going to hand over to Janet Pollard, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is the Q2 finance report for the whole of the Directorate of Place. The Directorate is projecting to overspend by £465,000 by the end of the financial year. For this portfolio, there is an overspend of £44,500. There are no main variances projected by the end of the year for this portfolio. The key financial findings can be found on page 3, and service specific findings can be found on appendix 1. The executive cabinet member is asked to note the contents of the report and to approve the recommendations in section 11. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Janet, and thanks to the finance team for their continued work on both reports that have to come to this ECM meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Hayes, please.
Yeah, sorry to be me again. On planning, I think everybody recognises there are improvements being made in planning, so we hope to see that overspend begin to reduce. But the question I've got is, where are we paying for the fees that should have been returned? You remember the work that was going on, we'd broken the law and had not returned fees to people who hadn't had their decision within a certain time. Quite a large amount of money potentially. Is that being taken from reserves, or is it coming from somewhere else?
We're going to have to ask for that question to go to Dwayne Lowe and Mr. Dyson, John Dyson, the director, because we've all got a commitment, Roger, if it's okay, to only have questions around the items that I'm responsible for example, on this meeting. But we will get that question taken to the right officers. I mean, the meeting's been recorded. Can you see what we're doing?
Does that not come under regeneration? Well, I thought under paragraph 2.3.2, it did seem to be under regeneration. Am I wrong?
No, the mid this year, at some point this year or last year, yes, planning is now with regeneration, but of course that's council as a man, isn't it, with his officers. So I will get you an answer to the question, but I don't on a weekly basis follow that matter that you've raised, because I just stick to my subjects, and I think we need to give the opportunity for the question to be answered by Dwayne Lowe, of course, who is the Assistant Director for Planning, and he reports to Mr. Dyson. Am I being fair enough to say to do it that way?
I would have thought we could have got an answer from Janet on that, could we not? It's just where is it coming from? Is it reserves or is it somewhere else?
Well,
I mean, if you'd rather get somebody else to answer it later, that's fine. But yes,
I think so. I will make sure you get. I'll I'll make sure that's passed on to the appropriate officers. Councillor Cowan, Amy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back on that point raised by Roger. I did ask this question at Audit Committee when we had the presentation by the planning officers with regard to the changes that have been made in the planning department. I did ask specifically where this money was coming from, which we would need to repay people. And the answer that was given at that time was that it was coming from reserves, but it was a little vague. But I think it was that it would have to come from reserves. So it would still be interesting to have that drill down a little bit on that. But I just wanted to just make that point. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Janet Pollard, please.
Thank you very much. Just to support Councillor Howarth, this portfolio, planning doesn't fit into this portfolio, which is why Councillor Howarth is sort of saying that I don't answer the question. However, Councillor Cowan is right that it was funded from the reserves. However, it was just the fact that she was saying it was vague. There is a clear strategy to fund it, and we will come back to you, Councillor Hayes, with a response as quick as I can. But I just wanted to put a bit of clarity there that it isn't vague. We know exactly where it's coming from, and it's appropriate.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, everybody. If there's no more questions on this second budget, the Place Directorate budget, I'm going to note the Q2 financial position of the Directorate of Place. I'm going to note the key findings of the report. I don't need to approve revisions made to the capital programme, and because we don't have capital in this in regulatory services, and authorise the Director of Place to call off under any available frameworks where the value of the works is less than £400,000. I don't need to make this approval because, of course, that's the capital programme. And I hope nobody ever gets confused where it will often say regulatory services and property in bold. You can just unbold and sort of put brackets around Directorate of Place report, I should say, because we don't have any property financing on this now. We only have the regulatory services and licensing on this budget. So unless anybody else wants to say anything, I think that's just an old hand up, Councillor Cowan. I'll just double check. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Thanks very much. So nice to see everybody today, and we can bring the meeting to a close. And we've had a number of actions, so please get in touch with me in between meetings if you need to at all. And you will be hearing from those that have agreed to make contact with you and others on this meeting. So thanks very much.
Okay, I'll stop the recording.
Thank you very much.